So, welcome everybody. My name is Dr. Nicola Dellinger, and today we're going to be talking about self-care as medicine. And the reason that I came up with this idea is that most of us know what to do or how to take care of ourselves. We just don't tend to choose it. So, my hope today is that you would leave here feeling more empowered to choose to take care of yourself first. Partially because we all feel better and brighter when we're doing a good job of tending to our own needs first, but also because there is a huge impact on your general health, not just mental, emotional well-being, but certainly physical manifestations of illness, disease, and imbalance as well that come when we aren't just tending to ourselves as well. So before we jump in, I'd love to take advantage of this opportunity that we all have together to just go ahead and take a few deep centering breaths. So if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can go ahead and do that. And then just bring your awareness to your breath. Simply noticing the inhale and the exhale. Maybe you notice your belly rise and fall, or your chest expand and contract. But as you become an observer of your breath, simply allowing any effort to control the breath to fall away, allowing the breath to find its natural rhythm. And as you let go of any control of the breath, you find that you're able to let go of any expectations of today's webinar or things that you need to be doing or any expectations you have for yourself today or in general. Just as you just become mindful and aware of the breath, you notice those impulses, those expectations, to simply fall out of your consciousness as you become more and more present to you in this moment. And maybe taking one more inhale and exhale here. Whenever you feel complete, you can open your eyes. So really what I wanted to let you know is that the breath is an amazing tool that you have all the time. And so I think it's so simple and something that we're with so often that we forget that that's one of our most powerful tools that is always accessible to us. So if you're like a lot of us where you feel like my life is really busy and I don't know if I have time or I'm not sure that I can fit all this in, then you can go ahead and remember I can just take 3 deep breaths, or I can breathe or follow my breath for a minute. So something like that can be really, really simple. And I find that as we're moving into developing self-care practices and patterns, that sometimes starting slow and simple is really the best way to access the most lasting changes. So I want to kind of dive in here and talk a little bit about the impact that not taking care of yourself has on your physical body, because I think a lot of us know the stress and strain that comes when we are overextended or it's been too long since we've taken good care of ourselves. But I think a lot of us don't realize that it might be impacting our physical health as much as we're just not aware of how much that's really impacting our physical health. So some of the things that I wanted to talk about are pain in the body, and I'll explain physiologically how we can get more pain and inflammation in the body as we move more down the stress system and as that stress system is unchecked or unmitigated. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that their pain levels can be directly related to how much stress they're experiencing in their world. And so that's something that's just, if pain is something that you work with daily or, kind of here and there, is there a correlation between how your body feels and the stress that you're experiencing in your world? And I think you'll be surprised to realize how much of a direct correlation there truly is. Another big one is any digestive upset. So any sort of irritable bowels, or IBS, Crohn's, colitis, celiac, SIBO, all of these things that we talk about now in gut health, or even just something more simple like bloating or tummy pain, that can be directly correlated to stress that we're not addressing. And I find that most people's digestion flows a lot better when we are in a more relaxed state of being. That's primarily because digestion is a parasympathetic or relaxed nervous system function. So when we're in sympathetic nervous system or fight and flight, we can't digest. We're literally shunting blood and resources away from our vital organs and into our limbs because, excuse me, so sorry. Because what we're trying to do is get ready to fight or to flee. And so what we want to do is have all of that blood and glucose and nutrients available to our limbs to help us, either fight or get away from our perceived threat. And so we're not as worried about digestion or reproduction for that matter when we are in a stressed state and we're not taking regular care of ourselves. And I see a lot of fertility issues both in women and men that have a huge correlation with stress and a lot of times, especially in women, maybe some previous trauma or old trauma that hasn't resolved in the body that continues to live on in our cells. As my mentor, Paul Epstein, always says, your biography becomes your biology. And it's similar in that, the cells are really representative or create the self. And it's the similar sort of thing as when, you haven't ridden a bike in 10 years and you hop on a bike and, you might be a little bit wobbly at first, but you really, know what to do. Your body remembers, and we call that cellular memory, right? Our body remembers all of these stresses and criticisms and traumas from our whole life. And unless we're actively moving through, then it can live in that physiology and continue to cause issues, especially in digestion and reproduction. And that doesn't mean necessarily just trying to have a child, but low hormone levels or imbalances in hormones, fibroids, cysts, endometriosis, all those sort of things can be directly related to, or at least in part to self-care practices and how they may or may not be prioritized in your world. So kind of continuing down my laundry list here, I think sleeplessness or insomnia or poor quality of sleep is a big thing that goes on for us. When we are not eating well, our blood sugar gets dysregulated, and maybe we're having blood sugar crashes or spikes before or after sleep, or maybe we're waking up too early because we haven't eaten real well and we had a blood sugar spike during the night and then we had a crash, and that kind of wakes us up physiologically. And obviously there's a huge impact on the central nervous system with stress that hasn't been tended to during the day. And then, I have a lot of people who say when they can increase their level of physical activity and exercise, that is something that really has a huge impact on allowing them to sleep well that evening. And if they haven't kind of expended some physical energy, it can be harder to fall asleep or stay asleep. So anxiety and depression, I think we think of these as mental health issues, but they're certainly physiologically related as well. All of our neurochemicals and neurotransmitters are hugely, hugely impacted by the most simple of self-care practices, be that a 10-minute meditation, a walk, what foods we're putting into our body. This all creates this milieu that makes us more susceptible to mood imbalances and things like that. Not to mention, if we're not kind of moving the stress out of our system in a conscientious way, then those tend to be the things that we tend to ruminate on, or that prevent us getting to sleep, or that we become persistent worries that we carry with us, and that can easily turn into more of an anxious or anxiety type state. And if things get, kind of progressively worse, moving on into panic. And so just kind of being aware of, not just the mental chatter and the stressors of day to day, but also these physiological impacts of exercise, diet, breath, mindfulness practices, and how they have a huge physiological impact on our mood and our outlook for each day. Fatigue, I think, goes without saying. So just a general sense of malaise or having a hard time getting out of bed in the morning, moving all the way over to chronic fatigue, where we're really having our quality of life and activities of daily living really impacted in a huge way. We can feel chest pain, heart palpitations, short of breath when we are getting burnt out or overextended. And so again, that whole issue with the cardiac region, we can feel dizzy or faint. I see a lot of people presenting with headaches of a variety of different presentations of headaches, and migraines as well, certainly, and just really kind of considering and looking at the role that stress and lack of self-care is having on our headaches. And then I always start, as a naturopathic doctor, I always like to start really simple and look at water intake, because that is one self-care practice that I think has a huge amount of benefit and doesn't take a huge strain to incorporate it. And so that's something, as we're working around self-care goals and wellness planning, that, starting with the goals that feel really, really easy and tangible. I'm looking over at my, where I sit with patients, and I have a big pitcher of water. And that pitcher has made a huge difference to actually have a pitcher in my office rather than having to go out to my reception to get water or tea has made a world of difference. So just these small things that we can start touching into to create more harmony, again, not just in our stress experience, but in our physiological body as well. When we are dehydrated, it is not uncommon for us to have a hard time moving our bowels. And so I certainly see people that are having a bowel movement every 3 days, once a week, and like to remind everybody that physiological normal is, the digestive tract is one tube from beginning to end. And so when we take in food, physiological normal would be that we also move waste through as well. And most people that I see are not at a 3 or 4 time a day bowel movement kind of normal, but at the very, very least one good full bowel movement a day, ideally 2, and remembering that your digestive tract is a slip and slide. And so if you think about going down that slip and slide without any sprinkler water on there, it's going to be a rocky ride and you're probably not going to get to the end. Your digestive tract is the same. And so something as simple as hydrating, especially first thing in the morning when you wake up, getting in 2 pints of water before you have your coffee or tea is going to be a game changer. So kind of really realizing how much these small self-care practices are actually implementing how well your body can function. Sticking on the theme of dehydration here, it's also really important to remember that that's also how your cells detoxify. And so if our cells aren't able to get rid of waste from their little containers, then they're going to have a hard time producing energy, managing inflammation, allowing those electrical impulses to happen that help our heart to function, et cetera, et cetera. So again, just the smallest of things can make a huge difference to your overall physical well-being. We also have to consider the impact of chronic stress or a lack of self-care on the immune system. So it can certainly weaken the immune system and make us more susceptible to colds and flus and viruses and things like that. But over time, it can really create a dysregulation in the overall immune system, where we see things like chronic allergies, either to foods or environmental issues like pollens and dust and dander, things like that. But then we can also see autoimmune issues coming out of a chronically stressed and system that's maybe been lacked taking care of. So looking at the immune system that way as well. You kind of circling back around to digestion, we can see a loss of appetite when we're not taking good care of ourselves, or maybe skipping of meals, or maybe we have kind of an unregulated appetite where we don't eat for long periods of time, and then maybe we overeat, especially towards the end of the day, because we haven't made time to make ourselves food that is really nourishing to the body. And so maybe we're doing a grab and go lunch or dinner. Maybe we come home from work or school and we're feeling way hungry. And so we kind of just go for what's quick and easy rather than better fuel for our whole system. And so taking some time to do a very simple meal plan, a grocery shop, and really prepping some food maybe over the weekend or in the evening so that you have plenty of good grab and go stuff that you've made yourself makes a world of difference as far as maintaining good healthy appetite that's balanced throughout the day, and also maintaining a healthy weight. And that can not only mean being overweight and carrying more weight on our body than we need, but also being underweight, because that's becoming more of an issue for some folks too. And then more on the kind of cognitive side, we see a loss of efficiency and efficacy where we're making more mistakes, we're more forgetful, we're having a hard time completing tasks because either we're distracted or because, again, we haven't fueled our brain. There's only so much coffee that the body responds well to. And so if we're using that as a large prop to help us get through our day without a balance of food and water and other nourishing things, then we're going to see a real hard time getting done what we need to do in our days and in our weeks, both at work and at home. And so realizing that there is a cognitive impairment that comes from lack of self-care that might run from feeling furry-headed or, kind of brain fog to really having some short-term memory issues and really not being as sharp. And then that translates into a lack of productivity, again, both at home and at work, which then fuels our cycle that we need to be working harder and doing more and we don't have time. And we'll talk about some of the common misconceptions around taking care of ourselves in a couple of minutes here. So I think that's it. If you have any questions and you want to post them in the chat, you're welcome to do that. There should be a little bubble icon at the bottom of your screen. You're welcome to ask questions anywhere along the way, but hopefully that kind of, this isn't an exhaustive list by any means, but I wanted to really touch on how much this lack of self-care and the burnout from a caregiver burnout, be it if we're caring for everybody in our world and trying to save them, or if we're a parent or a professional caregiver, or we have an aging parent that we're taking care of, or a partner that leans very heavily on us. It's a very real thing. When I was prepping for this talk, there was some really fascinating research, looking at healthcare providers and their burnout rates, which are, upwards of 40-45%, and what was happening for them, and, strategies to do that. But the reality of it is even if there's an awareness, let's say in the workplace, and there's support available, a lot of people have an EAP available, which is a therapy program that's paid for by the company you work for. But most people don't seek support from within the environment where the stress is coming from. So most healing is going to happen outside of that environment, be that the home or the workplace, where we are taking different steps and connecting with different people to help us on our journey. So I just want to start, excuse me, I'm going to get a little tea. I just want to start out by saying, when we avoid things that create more physical, mental, and emotional health, we're actually depleting our self-esteem and our confidence. And so I think that's something that it's harder to remember because, again, we make up all sorts of fun stories around why we don't have time. But again, in a longer term view, the longer we are engaging or not engaging, I guess, in positive self-care mechanisms, then the harder and harder it is to motivate ourselves to invite that back into our world. And so I think it's important to remember that if you're someone who hasn't taken good care of yourself over time, that it might have contributed to the whys where we make up story and excuses and reasons around why we don't take good care of ourselves, and plays into our sense of value and self-worth. And so we'll kind of dive a little deeper to that right now. So, like I mentioned before, there's some common misconceptions about taking care of ourselves. And, I think because many of us know how to take care of ourselves, like if there's a perfect world and I had no expectations of me, I would do A, B, and C. I would exercise more, I would eat different, I would spend more time with my friends. I would sleep different. I would go to bed earlier. Maybe, there's all sorts of things that all of you could come up with. But then that voice, that inner critic, that judge jumps in and says, but you don't have time for that, and you need to take care of all these other things first. And so we're going to kind of deconstruct what that is. And these might all apply to you. You might find that one or two resonate more than others. And so just kind of as I'm talking through some of these common misconceptions around self-care, just see which ones you go, ooh, yeah, I can relate to that, or like that seems like something that fits for me. And if it isn't that way, then just let it go. It might not be applicable to you, and that's okay, because we're all different and we all have different reasons why they get in the way of us taking care of ourselves differently than we might. So I think, again, starting with this idea that many of us know how to take care of ourselves, but some of us don't, partially because that voice that is so oriented towards taking care of everybody else is so loud that it's drowning out our own inner guidance, our own inner knowing. And so it's really great if you can slow down and realize that the voice that's driving you to worry about everything else is actually just a part of you that you can ask to step to the side until you kind of find that place of you that says, God, I'd love to go back to bed, or I don't want to clean the kitchen. I want to go for a walk in the fall colors, and just try to see if that manager, that part of you that's trying to keep you on task, if he or she can kind of step to the side and allow that other more inspired voice, that voice that's more oriented towards taking care of your person. And actually, if you can listen to her or him, I challenge you or invite you to do that and let me know what happens, because I can tell you I've been doing this practice for about 2 years now, and it has changed my whole world. And when I listen to that intuitive voice, the most magical things open up. And, I'm like, oh, I don't want to, stop for lunch, and then the part of me is like, okay, I need to go to lunch, or I want to go to lunch, and then I bump into whoever I needed to, or some collaboration comes out of it, or somebody comes in and says, oh, I can take care of that for you, or whatever I had to do this afternoon. And so we start being in allowance of what life is offering us once we realize that the universe or God or whatever your belief system is happening for us rather than to you. And that's a really important distinction. And I think many of us feel like at the whim and at the mercy of the world around us, and that we have to tighten our sense of control pretty locked down, pretty tight, in order to have any semblance of control or manage our schedule or get everything done that we need to do in a day. And so we build this tremendous amount of pressure rather than trusting that everything is going to be okay. I'll give you a great example, because I actually just fell into this pitfall this morning. My son has been with his dad for the past week, and I really wanted to pop by his school this morning and go see him. But I have an interview after this. And so I was like, you know what, I need to go get this microphone, which is funny because Vicky told me it's muffled and doesn't work anyway. But I have to get this microphone. I have to be ready for this interview. I have to prep more for this course, this webinar that we're doing now. And I didn't go and see my kiddo. And I went to Office Depot. I picked up the microphone thingy, which PS doesn't work. This isn't the one that I need. And then this morning when I opened my computer, I got an email from the person who I'm doing the podcast with to ask if we can reschedule because her kiddo is sick. And so it's so funny. If I had listened to that voice that said, just go see your kiddo at school and have a little snuggle and then go to work, my day would have been in such a different flow. But I'm still in the process of learning, just so you know, because this doesn't come easy, because we're so wired to ignore that voice in our head that knows what to do, that going to his school was exactly right. And it was a whisper, but my manager came in and was like, nope, we've got stuff to do. We got a busy day. We're super behind. I was out of town last week at a conference. We've got to catch up, And so realizing that had I listened to that voice, my day would have had a much different flow. And I didn't need to worry about getting this stupid microphone anyway because it didn't work and my interview was canceled. So you get my point, right? And you'll start seeing this more and more often. And I think most of us are good at seeing when we didn't listen to that, what happens when we don't listen to that inner voice. We can, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done that today, or I knew I should have done X, Y, and Z. But I want you to come into this awareness of what happens when you do listen and what everything that's created. So that's just a good tool for you to start practicing, is just identify that voice is a different part of you, ask her to step aside, and then see what inspiration is next. Kind of coming back to this idea that we know what to do, we also, a lot of us are kind of overwhelmed by options and opinions and information online around what to eat or how to exercise. Do I take a walk, or do I do CrossFit, or is yoga what I need to do? And, all of this, we get a lot of misinformation or conflicting information, and that can be pretty paralyzing. So again, coming back to that inner knowing around, this is the direction I want to move in, and this is what I know to be true for me today. And I have a very fluid schedule with my exercise routines, from walking on the river trail to hiking a little bit more intensely to taking a jog to yoga. I'm involved in the dance community here, and I have a gym here. And so that's 6 different things. I don't do them all every week. And I don't always go, Monday, Tuesday, this is what I do. And, Wednesday, Friday, this is what I do. I just show up and be in more fluidity with that. And that has created so much more and exactly what I need. And again, opens up opportunities that were beyond anything I was even thinking of. So number one myth to dispel is that self-care is selfish. We have been taught that being selfless is the pinnacle of being a good human in this world, especially us ladies. I've been taught self-sacrifice from a very, very young age. But I'm here to tell you, if you are not taking care of yourself, then you don't have all of the energy and the resources that are required in order for you to take care of anybody else. We can't give from an empty cup, but we can give from abundance when our cup is overflowing. And so if we take time every day to refill our cup and really come into more balance with ourselves and our own life, then we can show up not only with more energy and resources for people in our community, in our family, in our circle, but we can also, we'll be giving from a place of joy and overflow rather than resentment and obligation, which is where I think so oftentimes it's like, I have to do this, I have to do that. And over time, that builds up a negative energy. Even if it is something we actually want to be doing, we end up resenting or being disappointed by something that we're getting involved with. So that's something that I would offer you. I was on a plane yesterday and remembered that as there's doing their safety talk or whatever, and they talk about the oxygen masks, and that you're supposed to put your oxygen mask on first and then help others around you. And that is so very true. This idea that we need to put our mask on first, because if you're not getting air, you're only going to be able to help for a couple of minutes before you're no longer available to help the child or the older person or whoever else is traveling on the plane and in need of your assistance. And that is so true for every day in life, where we get overcommitted to taking care of everybody else first. The other thing to know about being selfless is that it can actually become addictive. It makes us feel important. It makes us feel good about ourselves, which is not a bad thing. And it makes us feel, kind of worth loving. Like if I do all this for other people, then I will feel this way in return. And it's not necessarily a conscious process. And I'm not saying that you have to be completely selfish. There's a huge distinction between selfish and self-centered. And so I'm here to reclaim the word self-centered, because that means to me putting yourself back in the center of your world firmly, and then everything else can rotate in balance from that center spoke, which is you. And so just being aware of the places in your world where you overextend because you're worried that you're not good enough, or that you need to do more to deserve a good life, or to earn the love of the people in your world. And so just, again, take these into an awareness and just see what comes into your consciousness, if that's something that you feel like you can relate to. So I think oftentimes we can confuse caring about someone and being a good friend or a good partner, a good, child, with rescuing. So where we feel like we need to go in and save somebody from their own suffering, from their experience, like we need to go ahead and fix this person, and so we throw any self-care out the window, because all of our juice is being given to saving and fixing somebody else in our world, because we really, it's coming from an altruistic place. We don't want them to suffer, but really, and this is going to feel maybe a little harsh, who are you to decide what's best for somebody else? I think a lot of times we think we know best, and our intentions are really beautiful and really on spot and really coming from a loving place. But oftentimes when we jump in to take care of someone on a deep level, we are actually preventing them from learning the lessons that they need to learn to grow in a whole new way. And we're actually reinforcing their own helplessness. I was talking to my son, who's 8, and we were talking about tying shoes, and I don't know, he's been tying his shoes for a while now, but we were talking about this idea of helplessness, because he's like, well, I want you to do this for me, and I want you to do this for me. And I said, I could tie your shoes every day, but if I hadn't taught you how to tie your shoes on your own and they come untied at school, what are you going to do? And he's like, well, I could ask a teacher for help. I said, yeah, but you're still relying on somebody else. So that means you got to stop playing your game, go find a teacher, and then join the game. And maybe, your friends have moved on or something like that. But if you can tie your own shoe super quick, take care of it and move on. And it was like, oh. And so that's really when we are truly selfless, we're actually aware of how our caring impulses might be making things worse for the person that we're actually trying to serve and help. So it's kind of a different concept that sometimes, again, can rub people the wrong way. If you are having a strong reaction to me saying that, I would really invite you to dive even deeper, because a lot of times we push away stuff that feels that rings true, that we don't want to be true. Like, that's not me. I just want to be, I'm trying to be a good person. And again, it's not about a question of doubting your intentions, but really just questioning are you really achieving the outcome that you want, which is for everyone to be more innerly strong and independent and confident in their own person. And then they can meet you in your own light and confidence. And then you can really support each other from a very healthy and whole place. I think another reason that we have a hard time taking care of ourselves is because we get really messed up signals about what love is, what true love is, how families show up for each other, how partners show up for each other, especially. I think a lot of that comes from Hollywood and the images and storylines that we get around self-sacrifice and losing yourself in someone else. And that's what true love means, is that all I can do is obsess and think about the other person and take care of the other person and orient myself to the other person. But in reality, what we're really looking for is a love, especially a partnership love, where I love me and you love you, and we come together to love on each other from that full cup place, rather than I need you and I have these bits and parts and pieces that I can't stand, so will you love these and I'll love your parts in exchange, so don't grow and change, but stay like you are, and my mission will be to make you better, and then I expect that in return from you. So you can see how we can easily get into more dysfunctional relationships and patterns with people that we care about, friendships as well, or certainly families as well. It's not just love relationships. So just being aware of that pattern of kind of neediness, being kind of enmeshed and confused with true love. There was a great quote from Ernest Hemingway in his book, Men Without Women, that I'm going to read to you. The most painful thing is losing yourself in the process of loving someone too much and forgetting that you are special too. So just, again, taking a moment or two to reflect here. Where were the times and places and relationships in your life where maybe you've lost yourself in relationship to someone else and forgot that you were special and valuable and worth that level of love and commitment and energy? And what's cool is that if you have been in that sort of situation, you already know how to dive deep into love, and you just have to shine that inward because you already have the skill set. It's just redirecting it. So nothing to worry about here. You've already got it. We just get to apply it in a whole new context. So I'm excited about that. Something that I think is really important to bring up too is the idea that we teach other people how to treat us by how we behave and treat ourselves. And so if we are kind of stuck in that needy, like, I need someone to need me so that I know that they won't leave me kind of thing, then we are going to attract needy people into our lives. And then we end up complaining because we've, invested so much in that person, and maybe they don't invest that back in us. And like, well, I really needed you, and I was there for you, and you weren't there for me. And, so there's this quid pro quo kind of thing that's happening. Again, subtly, this is a complicated strategy we've come up with here, but there's almost this expectation of, I will take care of you to this extent in the hopes that you will take care of me in this way in the future if I were to need it. And so I think it's really important to be aware of those sticky places in our relationship where there is that expectation. And again, I think that when we're giving too much, or we're giving from a depleted place, then there is that expectation of being filled back up by others. And when that doesn't come to fruition, which is unfortunately a lot of the time, then we build resentment, and we get bitter, or we swear off men for the rest of our lives, or we can get very cynical when we aren't taken care of. But it's another hard pain point to bring to your awareness. You are responsible for that, actually. Sure, the other person plays a role in how he or she shows up, but ultimately it was your choice to give them all of your energy and leave none for you. And so we have to start coming to this awareness that I choose to leave a certain portion or the majority of energy for me, and I serve from my overflow, or I give from the excess, or I give what I can based on what's my truth. I have days and weeks where I can give a ton, and I have other days and weeks where I am totally unavailable and pretty useless as a doctor, as a mother, as a partner, as a friend. But I'm okay with that now, because I know if I take that time for me, I will show back up with oodles of extras for everybody, and maybe even new people in my world. So just kind of thinking about taking some ownership and responsibility for how much you're giving to others, and then how depleted that makes you feel, rather than relying or hoping or expecting that they would show up to fill you up because you showed up to fill them up. Okay. So last, I want to touch on this idea that we don't really realize our own self-worth, that we're not really aware of how valuable you are. You're not aware maybe of how valuable you are. And so that can be, I would say, the biggest sticking point in actually making changes in actions and patterns and behaviors that really make a difference in taking care of ourselves. And so I would invite you to think about, honestly, and this is something you can just share with you in reflection or meditation or prayer, maybe it's a journaling exercise, but how much do you value yourself, and how much do you tell yourself you're not worth it, or you don't have the money for that? But if your kid needed something, you would find the money for that, and also kind of where we spend our time and our money. And maybe some things get to shift around. I was thinking about it this morning as I was getting dressed, and I put on a pair of pants that I've had in my closet for a long time, and I always put them on, and they fit okay, but I don't love how they feel on my body, but I keep them in my closet because I don't know. I don't even, as I'm saying this, I don't even know why I keep them. Probably because they're perfectly good and there's no holes in them, and they look fine, but they're not comfortable when I wear them. The waistband's just too low. It cuts me in a weird place. And so I'm actually going to get rid of those pants when I get home today, because I think we keep things in our closet, in our world, in our relationships, because they fit okay. It's not a, woo, I love how this feels, that great pair of clothes or pair of pants or sweater that you put on and you're just like, oh, I love wearing this. But we keep other bits and pieces around in our lives and our world, because it fits okay. And it's almost like we're scared to let go of it, because what if I never get another pair of pants again? Or what if I never find another pair of jeans or whatever, which is ridiculous because there's jeans everywhere. And the more space I make in my closet, the more, I'm more on the lookout. Okay, I need some new pants. I thought I had 10 pairs of pants and I actually only have 5 that I love to wear. And the same is true with relationships or habits. It's like, well, how many things are you doing in a day that you do out of habit, or because you're not ready to clean them out of your closet, or because you're not sure what to replace it with? So that can also be a great place to start, is what makes me less. If it's not a hell yeah, then it's a no, is kind of my new mantra. And this idea of, if it's inspiring to you and brings you joy, then keep it around. And if it doesn't, then try something new. If you dread going to the gym, maybe quit going to the gym, go to a dance class, go check out yoga, just take a walk, get out a bicycle, if you haven't done that forever. If you're dreading it, or you're not really super excited by it, then drop it and fill it in with something else. And I think that's what we are so prone to do, is just keep our schedule packed so much because we should be doing whatever. And it's like, you know what, this doesn't have to be that way. So, this idea that I just don't have time, or I just don't have money, is actually a mask for feeling undeserving. So if you find yourself saying that a lot, kind of maybe bring that part of you who feels undeserving or unworthy, just allow him or her to come a little bit more to the surface, and love on her. Tell her you're worth it. If you want to spend $15 on a yoga class, that's okay. Or we've got $80 to take you to a massage. That's fine. Or we can choose to eat more healthfully, or we can create more time in our week to make sure we've got delicious, nutritious food prepped for us. And so just start having that dialogue if that comes up a lot, this idea I just don't have time, or I just don't have the money, and see if we can't kind of drop some of these veils of not feeling worthy and deserving, because you are. It's interesting. I saw a meme this morning, and it said, all the Me Too stuff is going on right now, and so it says someone's sister, wife, mother, whatever. And then it had X'd out in red the mother, sister, wife, and just said, because she is someone. And I think that we have to start claiming our own brilliance and our own worth, by saying, because I'm someone, and it's not because I'm in relation to somebody else that makes me valuable and worth protecting, right? That's kind of what this meme was showing, is we shouldn't be worrying about women's rights because of who they are in relationship to taking care of other people. We should be worrying about it just simply, because you are alive and this is your one precious life. And it's time to kind of call in more of what you want and make more space for you in your own world. So kind of some take-home points around what to do. Self-care is going to look different for everybody. For some people, that's connecting more with friends and family. For other people, it's disconnecting from social stuff. For some people, it's exercise or food or meditation or play, or stopping and just sitting out in the sun and watching the clouds go by. So there's really, any pressures or expectations or stories that you make up around what this is supposed to look like. If you could just, release and destroy all of that right now, just kind of let that go from your system, and, practice listening to that inner voice. What feels good to me? What's true for me? Everybody might be at the latest CrossFit gym and that just sounds horrible to you. And that's okay. That's your truth. So own it, stand in it. And, if you're stuck and you can't come up with something, maybe try doing something that you used to enjoy. Maybe it was 20, 30, 40 years ago that's something that you used to really like, but maybe step back into that. Just try things on. I think so often we get stuck creating any sort of wellness or self-care plan for ourselves because we feel like, well, if I went to that yoga class, then I have to now just go to yoga. And it's like, no, just try it on with complete permission. to never ever go again if you didn't like it, and no expectations of what it will or won't be. And so I want to leave you with a practice that I found really, really helpful. And so I kind of put both of my hands up, palms up, and I think about all the things that I'm worrying about. All the things I need to take care of, all the bits and pieces in my world that I'm worried won't be taken care of, or that I've got to do, or my to-do list, all my managery kind of things. And then I imagine that this is the hand of God or the hand of the universe, or, again, whatever it seems like a fit for you. And I kind of really, I spend a few moments really imagining all of the things that I worry about. And then I simply take that hand and I put it like this. And there's something so special about just really being able to say, okay, this is all taken care of. All of it, my kid, my husband, my patients, my business, my family, my old elderly parents, it's all taken care of. And then when I do that, it allows me to connect more readily to that inner voice without the manager voice being quite so loud. So, if you want to take a few moments and practice that now, we can kind of do that together. And then whenever you feel ready, just passing them over. And it's all taken care of. The universe is happening for all of us, every single one of us. And it's actually kind of funny to think about the idea that given how complicated our universe is, and DNA and cells and evolution and everything that's occurring and unfolding, and the planetary alignments and the tides and the moons and everything that goes into having this universe run, that your attempts at controlling your environment have any impact at all, right? There is a divine grace that's unfolding for you every single day, for all of us every single day. And so once we kind of realize that the world, the intricacies of the world and the universe that go on every day without our awareness, or even in your physiological body, what's unfolding to have you breathe and digest and pump your heart and all the things you don't even give any thought to, that we could influence that in some way by feeling really tight around needing to control a situation. So hopefully that gives you a huge breath of freedom to let go and be fascinated by the divinity that's unfolding in front of you and really find joy. And then in that, by you choosing what pleases you and what helps you take care of yourself, then it's going to open up a whole new framework for how you see everything that's unfolding. And so today, when this interview was canceled after I had run all around town first thing this morning, got up early to do it, I was just laughing. And at first I was super bummed because I've been waiting for this interview for about 3 months. But then I was like, this is happening for me, and it's getting rescheduled, and it's getting rescheduled for the perfect time. And I don't know why it's being rescheduled, but I trust that it's happening. Everything's happening for exactly the right reason. And it helped move me out of that story that I could have made up about the interviewer. It helped me move out of any disappointment that I had, and really created more space for me to be fully present with you all. So anyway, we can start, once we start realizing that there is a divine unfolding, then it takes so much pressure off of us and really allows even the things that might be disappointing or not go according to plan a gift every single day. So that's what I've got for you all today. I'm happy to take any questions. If you wanted to either unmute yourself or write in the chat box. I also want to let you know, starting October 9th, which is a week from tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a 5-month online program for, how to put yourself first, how to really become a better friend to yourself. And I'd love to join you there. I'm going to go ahead and offer you a little gift of a 25% discount for joining me on the webinar. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it beyond words. And hopefully if that's a gift that resonates for you, I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper. But because I know most of us feel like our lives are really, really full, I set it up really easy. There's one live call a month. That's it. And then there's some recorded webinars and journaling stuff to do on your own time whenever you have time and space to do it. So if you're interested in that, I'd be happy to answer questions about that, and then or just see you there. Okay. So if there aren't any questions, again, my deep, deep gratitude for you being here. I'd love to stay in touch. And so I have a connectivity group on Facebook. You're welcome to email me as well, or set up a time and we can work together a little bit more closely. Thanks again for being here, and I look forward to talking with you soon.